Greetings and salutations, people. We are waiting on the diva Russell Johnson to join us here in the studio, but it'll be interesting to see how this all goes down. Thanks for everyone joining me. I'm in Tampa in my hotel room. Russell's back in the frigid tundra of Georgia, apparently, and just waiting to get going here. Double check to make sure I sent Russell the correct link. Mm-hmm. And we'll give everybody a minute to jump on as well. For those wondering, I went over to Carrollwood Day today to check out the Anthony Carey ceremony, and it was very funny because there was a kid named Isaiah Williams, I think is his name. He was a receiver there, 4-star guy. He's been committed to Florida, and he unexpectedly flipped to Texas A&M in the middle of. He unexpectedly flipped to Texas A&M in the middle of he was between Anthony and a kid named Solomon Williams, who ended up going to A&M. He flipped to A&M, and no one, I guess, knew he was doing it other than maybe a couple of the kids. So it was pretty funny to watch. It all kind of went sideways very quickly. What's up, RJ?
Hey, what's up?
So, yes, let's never forget the 404 denim line, which to this day is one of the few things I literally did not get sucked into that. I knew better than that, and I was one of the people that just thought that was utterly stupid and chose to completely ignore it to the point of where I really never even understood what was going on with it. So I congratulate myself, pat myself on the back for that one.
Yeah, you should. That thread was JOL in its prime.
It was something. There are occasionally threads I choose to not operate in, and then that was one of them. When the idea of coming out with a clothing line for a place that doesn't sell out their own allotments of hats and t-shirts. They use the same cups in the basketball arena for 2 years. Come on, let's be real about this stuff. But yeah, it's I was just laughing very hard when I saw a bad thread dug back up from 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it is now, from that signing day, the 404 day. Poor Big Daddy Buzz took it on the chin. Yeah. But yeah, so I think what we're going to do is we'll jump into questions, and then Russell and I will kind of go back and forth on the ones we'll go back and forth on, and I'll read them out, Russell, and then I'll let you kind of react, and I'll intertwine as possible.
That works.
Someone wants to know, I gotta start with this just since it's on the topic that we're going on, but you see the question, Russell, in the chat. Do you want to jump in on that one first?
I don't actually see the chat. How can I see the chat?
Oh, sorry. So I guess I can only see it because I'm running the show. Sorry. So we're still getting used to using our new system here. But someone's asking what the story was. Apparently, Jeff Collins had a deleted tweet that everyone was mentioning.
Oh, you're talking about I tweeted out?
I don't know if it was you or a Collins deleted tweet that everyone was mentioning. That's just what it says. Oh. Was it? Did you tweet some shade at old Jeffrey?
I did today. I said, hopefully the new scooter that just signed, Anthony Carey, ends up a little bit better than the other scooter they had to deal with for several years.
Yeah.
I think that tweet was up for like 45 seconds, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is probably going to go very well. So then I went and took it down.
You know what happens is like everybody tags him immediately. Like if there's something like that, and that's hilarious. I forget what the tweet was that I had after the Syracuse game, and literally, I think there was like 60 people that like tweeted it at Jeff, and it was very funny. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, all right, let's jump it in. Here's the first question. After dust settles from today and we take stock of who we have coming in, what are the biggest needs to be addressed on the player side between now and February in high school and now in the spring transfer portal? Will we take any more high school players or just look to the portal to fill those needs?
So, I mean, first off, I think the big and glaring need remains at edge rusher. And if they're able to put together and find someone from the portal who can fill that hole and kind of be ready to make an instant impact, then I could definitely see that being a realistic target. But if not, I could also see them, maybe trying to find a late bloomer like they have in years past, and maybe take a chance on them. But regardless, I think they're going to need at least one guy in the portal on the edge, and then I was talking to some sources throughout today and this week, and it sounds like they may still not be done at linebacker, and they could still make another addition there from the transfer portal, but they're going to be pretty picky on being sure that it's going to upgrade the position and not just flood the room. There's been a lot of talk from sources and even other sources from other schools around the ACC that a lot of school programs are getting caught up in still making sure they're signing a certain amount of kids every cycle, and as a result, they're signing subpar talent who are bottoming out and either leaving after 1 year or leaving after 2 years, and then all of a sudden you've only got one or two different classes in your linebacker room, and it creates a big issue.
Yeah, Brett talked about this a little bit in his presser today, that linebacker room's been upside down just in terms of the talent age thing. Like it's been older, and they had Charlie and Ace, and then this year they had the three seniors and Kyle Eford and Tren. And so they need to find some balance there, and that's one of the things he's trying to do, and not just go take two or three senior Band-Aid guys out of the portal to help kind of bolster that linebacker room, that they need to start developing guys naturally there. The same thing with the end spots. I think that's just been a function of sort of poor recruiting and missing in recruiting, and then guys leaving, like the guys who should be older, like the Jared Ivies and now Kyle Kennard, both leaving the program and not having the same caliber of guys there to replace those guys. So, yeah, they've got to do a little bit of work there. I definitely think the adding two edge guys is going to be important, even with Jack Martin coming in, that they need maybe another older body, or, I don't know what you're going to get out of Sylvain. We still don't know 100% for sure that he's back. So I think they need to kind of try to figure out something there.
Yeah, I think that's really the big question is, what do they do there? And then do they add a wide receiver after, being forced to kind of part ways with 4-star Kobe Young, who signed with Houston today, and then not really pushing it all for any of the current guys in the portal. I definitely think they will target a receiver in the portal. I just don't think that receiver is in the portal yet, if that makes sense.
Sure. Next question is, what really happened with the defensive recruiting, and particularly the defensive line? I think it's been a series of them taking guys they shouldn't take and trying to shoot too high on some early guys. And my take on it is that you have to push hard to close the guys you can get. And they got Bradford today, which was a nice pickup, and they have a couple of nice guys committed, but you've got to understand what you can get, what you can close, what you can keep. And they've been in this situation the last couple of years where they're kind of like in a little bit of a scramble late to try to fill out the D line class, and I don't think that's where you want to be with it. And the guys who've been the most successful are ones they targeted earlier on, like the Zekes or Kyle Kennard or those type of dudes, and not the guys that they kind of circled around on at the last minute and brought in.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. But my take on it is it also has it boils down to evaluations at some point too.
Yeah, we got to be able to. That's I mean, you're in a place like Georgia Tech. You're not going to walk in and throw your Georgia Tech hat on the table, and kids are going to get weak in the knees at it. Like it's not Alabama or whatever. Like like USC or some like school that has that kind of gravitas right now. Maybe someday it will be that again, but like it's not 1920 or whatever the last time that was the case. So like, you gotta, the best coaches here have relied very hard on their evaluation process and finding diamonds in the rough, finding the Michael Johnsons of the world or the Shaq Masons or whatever, like those guys on your lines of scrimmage you could develop, turn into something. And so you got to keep doing that, and not. And the Zeke Biggers is a great example of that. We had our buddy Adam Friedman swore up and down to me that he would never play a snap of defensive line in college. Yep. Hence why he was a 2-star. And I saw the guy and I saw how big he was, and I was like, if he can literally just fall forward, he will be okay. Like as a defensive tackle at his size, and he's turned out to be a lot better than that. So like. Those are the wins they've had, but they haven't had enough of them lately, and that's why they're in a little bit of a pickle there. I think the linebacker recruiting has been worse than that, but the defensive line recruiting is not. It started out pretty well, and then it's really kind of petered out from the first couple of years when Jeff was there to now. Like it's just kind of trended the wrong way in terms of bringing in talent that can come in and contribute and compete for a starting job.
Yeah, that's a really very true statement.
Go ahead, Russell.
Linebacker recruiting and really actually in general with the whole recruiting class, not really the linebacker position. They were able to keep Tajay Butler and be able to flip Caleb Dozier from Mississippi State. They did come up short in the Cameron Bobby Pruitt sweepstakes in terms of just kind of walking away in terms of the way things were playing out there as numbers kept climbing up throughout the night. But it seemed like throughout the cycle, the 2024 cycle especially, they had early commitments from some good guys. They had Trajan Greco, they had CJ Jackson, and it seemed like they may have gotten a little bit too comfortable.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much activity. I don't know if the communication was where it was. I know the Bowling Green loss kind of, I wouldn't say that was the reason CJ decommitted, but I will say that, that was something that kind of caught his attention in a bad way. And then, things started taking place from there. Gets in contact with LSU, gets in contact with Colorado. Then you had Trajan Greco, who, said he was going to visit Missouri. Visited Missouri, told everybody that it wasn't really going to be a big deal. It was just a trip. And you know how that one played out.
Yeah, Missouri's been a hot topic on the board. They have a sizable NIL piece, and they have the ability to pay kids while they're in school in that state because of the weird NIL laws they passed in the state of Missouri. So that has been a bone of contention in multiple states with Georgia, Alabama, and some other places. Those high-profile programs getting pissed about it. The next question kind of dovetails right into that. If Pruitt did get over $100,000, does it mean all our higher-ranked recruits also got that much or more? I guess it would piss me off if I'm one of the 4-star guys and that guy's getting more than me. And I'll answer this. There is a way that all the money's slotted. I know some of the people involved in all of it and like have been kind of made aware of the way things work. And Brent is a believer in the charge that the collective has is to reward people who have had success on the field in college, primarily. And there are certain positions you will pay money for, but there are others that you won't. And so I think that you've got to understand that that's going to be the case from time to time. And so they did bid up. It sounds like they bid up Miami, which is very funny. But
Quite a bit,
everyone
actually.
knows where they stand, and Brent's very transparent, and the way the collective works is very transparent with the players on the team and people assigned with Georgia Tech where things stand, what to expect, and all of that. It's not a there's no surprises. Everyone knows where they stand within the program.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, but yes, they made Miami spend a bunch of extra money to keep that kid. How much did Thacker and Tillman leak affect our defensive recruiting? Do you think Collins was involved, or was that just a tinfoil hat conspiracy?
I'll let you handle the Jeff Collins part, but I think that I wouldn't say it really. Obviously, it impacted the Pruitt decision much, but
Thacker impacted some guys a little bit, I would say.
yeah, Thacker impacted Greco quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because when Thacker first got demoted, I reached out, did the recruit reaction thing you're supposed to do in this business when something like that takes place. And when I did that, he was, he basically said, I don't really agree with the decision, but everybody has their opinions, or something along those lines. Because Thacker was his primary recruiter and was really his main contact. That was his guy. That was who he came to when he needed anything. He had any questions about Georgia Tech, he came to him, and things like that. With Tillman, I don't really know any recruits that had that type of relationship with him. It was just more so he was the only DB coach. And when you're the only DB coach, you're responsible for recruiting corners, safeties, and nickels. And when you're, struggling at doing that and not being able to properly evaluate or, make hard decisions in terms of offers, not offers, whether I'm going to take a commitment or not from a kid. I think that really did hurt, not having a DB coach at the end with Trey Alexander and his decision to kind of not stay close to home, but to go to BYU and to remain loyal.
Well, I think Tillman not showing a lot of interest in that kid too really turned him off early on. I mean, we were at the camp, the kid balled out at the camp, should have been offered there, didn't get offered.
Yep.
And it kind of snowballs. And this is one of many. AJ Swan's another great example of this, where like if you don't get on a kid early, like it can sour them a little bit when you try to spin back later and they feel insulted because maybe you've offered other guys they think they're better than or are better than, in some cases, like with Swan, like they were offering guys that were not as good as him. And so you end up losing that kid. And we'll see what happens. Salt Lake's a long way away and an interesting place to go. I hope he likes caffeine-free soda.
Yeah.
You can't get any on their campus. It's the only place I've ever seen like diet caffeine-free root beer and stuff, and like a Coke machine, like that's like one of those like 6-head Coke machines, like or like you would have in a normal like restaurant soda fountain setup.
So you mean to tell me that's not a joke? Like that's real life?
No, it's a real thing, dude. Like it's legit. I've been out there many times. I like that area, and yeah, you can't in Provo, where BYU is, you can't get like caffeinated sodas like on campus. You get they have caffeine-free Coke and stuff in the press box, in the vending machines. Do I think Collins was involved? I mean, I don't know. I don't know who those guys called when they found out. I mean, it was like literally hours. I talked to Andrew. I have a good relationship with Thacker, and great dude. And he was like pissed that it was out because the reality of the situation was Brent was trying to help them get a leg up on getting their next gig, right? Which is what you want to do in that situation. And so I think they were going to coach the bowl game and do all like they just operate like they did during the end of the regular season. And then when that thing got leaked on Football Scoop, he got forced to pull him off the field. That's my opinion about what happened. And so at that point, he had to pull him. They were on the road. He had to pull him off the road. They were scheduled to go out and still be on the road after that. There were people in the office that I had no idea. So Said something in the chat that, oh my god. You guys will enjoy the chat if you go back and look at it. All right. But do I think Jeff could have been anybody? Could have been someone upset. It wasn't Thacker, but it could have been someone else.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. I have two suspects. I'll put it that way. With regards to prospective new coaches, would it be realistic to expect each guy to bring one player with him, or portal or high school? No, because it's total. This is all the chances. Brent can hire somebody in the NFL. He can hire someone at a service academy. He can hire someone at FCS school. You could hire a guy from a MAC school, whatever. Like the DC could come from anywhere. So expecting some guy to bring some dude with him is highly unlikely. Could they bring like Nate Woody came here and he brought the guy from Sheila Wood came here with Nate Woody and he brought a guy from what was his name? He's a safety. He's a really smart guy. He brought him from Wofford. I think that's where he was. And yes, you could see that happening, but I'm still laughing at the chat. Sorry, and but don't bank on that, right? Like, don't bank on if he went out and say hire DJ Durkin tomorrow that he would bring guys from where he was. Like, that's not necessarily the case. So that's you don't do that. This one dovetails into what we already talked about. The league negatively affect our class, and if so, by how much? I think it's one or two guys, and that was sort of it. What do we target now? More high school kids or transfers to close out the 2024 class? We've sort of touched on this already. I'd expect the majority of it to be portal guys, because so here's the way the portal works, right? Like you're going to have right now. You've had my buddies. Ops guy at an FBS school explained it to me this way, and I think this is a great. He said there's people who want money, there's the people who are unhappy with either playing time or their situation, and then there's the kids that were told to get lost. Those were the three types of people that went in the portal right now. In the next cycle, you'll get, after these bowl games, you'll get guys that were maybe buried on a depth chart or playing out the season. They don't like the situation going into next year, or there was a coaching change they don't like, or something else. You'll get a more reasonable group of people coming in to. Is that me that's chiming? It might be.
No, sorry. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, but people keep hitting notify anyway.
Oh, that's fun. I thought it might be my iPad that's sitting here that was just rebooted because I forgot my own password to my iPad and had to reboot it. Long story, but because I hadn't used it in a while. But yeah, so this next set of portal kids may actually be a little bit more of the guys who can contribute immediately. So that's what I would say is going to be the basis of it. And then there's going to be one or two high school kids that everybody recruits. There'll be guys that maybe they liked in the state championship game that opted not to sign somewhere, or maybe they missed on a guy, or someone decides to go in the portal suddenly that they weren't expecting, and they need to go add a high school kid to backfill like a backup line spot or something.
Yeah.
Those are the things where you might see them circle back on high school. But I would think one, maybe two high school guys would be the most they would target, and then the rest of the portal, right?
Yeah, I think it would be the running back from Texas, Will Henderson. If he still has interest, and if they opt to maybe just take one portal running back, or if something happens with other members of the roster currently after the bowl game, and that spot opens up, I think Henderson would be one to keep an eye on. And then I also think there's going to be a pretty big push from the state people around here and in the state of Georgia for Georgia Tech to find a way to take CJ Hurd, the safety linebacker from Woodward. I thought there was a chance they were going to take him after he visited Georgia Tech, last weekend, but nothing really materialized. And anytime a kid like that, who had, I don't even know how many offers at one point, was committed to Florida State for years, and then things took place, and all of a sudden he's back on the market and not going on an official visit the weekend before signing day, and you're like, what's going on? So, at that point you kind of knew that either he was going to sign with Georgia Tech on Wednesday, or he was going to push it to February and see what other options he can find. And I guess that's kind of where he's at. But I know he has been in contact with several commits, just pushing and trying to hopefully find a way to get some influence and find his way into the class.
Yeah, I think that with a guy like CJ, as a tweener guy, like a tweener DB, that's a guy you can use scholarship 83 on or whatever if you're in a spot and you have enough attrition and you don't look like you're going to fill up. Like, to bust open that Woodward bridge a little bit, maybe get a kid from there for the first time in forever. Like, there's sort of a case you can make there, and then you hope you can figure out where to play him eventually as a tweener. Tell David to stop texting you, by the way. How does Carey compare to Gibbs coming out of high school? I'll let you dive into this. You've been in the film room looking at Carey.
So, Carey is a much more in between the tackles type back than he is this explosive home run threat. I think he is someone who is going to meet you in the gap, and instead of trying to stretch it outside or be that main guy catching the ball out of the backfield. He does have some level of speed, but it's not as explosive and game breaking as Jamal Haynes, Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like that who they've had in the past. Did I lose you, Kelly?
No, you didn't. Sorry, I had to go blow my nose.
Oh, I didn't know what happened. Okay. Sorry, first time doing this. I'm
no, it's okay. I'm battled with a sinus infection, so
yeah. So with Carey, like I was saying, I think he's a much more 3-down back than everybody thought Gibbs was coming out of high school. I think that was really the big knock, and why Tashard Choice was able to really hammer that one down and lock it down early was just his belief in him as a 3-down back, and as somebody who can touch the ball 15 to 20 times a game and not be some 5 to 10 touch guy that was all over the message board at some points.
I'm laughing more at the chat. Sorry. Do we land a stud rush before next season begins? I mean, we kind of touched on this before. They're definitely going to try to amp up the defensive line positions as much as they can in the portal. To me, like, losing Ty French is not the end of the world unless you're going to suddenly change to an odd front. Yeah. I don't know where he fit in really well at his size. Like, he's a productive guy, but the more I thought about it, like, he made the right decision going to a place that both gave him a lot of money and B, gave him the opportunity to play in space where I think he's a little more capable at his size. Like, he's not going to whip an offensive tackle in a one-on-one that easily in the ACC. So no. I think he made the right decision for him in terms of the scheme, unless Georgia Tech turns around and they go into something else. But yeah, that's what's my thought on that. Brent Key keeps referencing they're waiting more guys to announce. He was talking about Anthony Carey and Bradford, and then they have some irons in the fire still with some transfer guys, one of which is still getting offers from other schools, so I don't think he's doing anything soon. And then, there's more. There's going to be more stuff. Malik Riviera, that was the guy I was thinking about from Wofford. Really nice kid. Played safety at Georgia Tech, Paul's last few years. But yeah, or last season. But I think that the way you look at it is you're going to be adding throughout as you can, right? They're not close to being up on scholarships yet. So based on, we still expect, I'd say, another 5-10 guys to leave by the end of April or whenever the next portal window opens. Is it May, April, whenever that is? I think it's April. That's, there'll be more movement. There's like 3 or 4 guys I know that are going to graduate in the spring, and they may go through spring ball and then leave. And there's transparency with this. I'm not going to catch Brent Key off guard. This has all been sort of worked out. So I think that, this is, I was talking to Alex Skolish today as a head coach at USF, and he was telling me that it's now like a 365, 247 cycle with recruiting with your roster because you just don't know, like, as things go on. Is it realistic to assume that either Hamilton or Lightsey could start next fall, or should we look at these guys as much needed depth from prior linebacker misses and past classes? I think they hope EJ competes, and I think they hope Hamilton competes for a job. That would be the best case scenario. Do you pencil them in today as starters now?
No. No, you can't pencil them in as starters. I think Jackson Hamilton is going to likely start out on special teams, just the way his body type is and what he's been able to do and what he's been able to show in his limited time at Louisville. I think Lightsey is a lot more of a lottery ticket where the first 2 or 3 numbers, and you've just got to hammer down the last 2 and find a way to get that production from that frame and that body type. Because, I mean, you look around and you look at the linebacker room heading into signing day today, and you add EJ Lightsey to that room, and you look at him, and you're like, this should be the number 1 or number 2 guy, maybe next to Trinelius Tatum or to, Eford. But that's just on paper, and by looking at him, he's got to actually be able to follow that up and, get into the weight room at Georgia Tech, work with his teammates, build relationships with the coaches, whatever ends up happening there, and then be able to stay healthy. Lightsey's big thing has been staying healthy. He was obviously shot in high school. That's been talked about quite a bit. Really late in his journey there, and then struggled with a shoulder injury most of this year. Ended up being healthy, and I think he could have contributed, but Kirby seemed to be a lot more inclined to play his younger guys that they basically kind of recruited over EJ.
Yeah, I agree there. Who is the next Eric Singleton, Ethan McKinney of this class? Trey Horn, maybe? Like, I think people are sleeping on him. Luke Harpering, maybe? Like,
yeah, I would say if Luke ends up being,
not trying to pick 2 white guys, by the way, but like,
right, exactly. But those are obviously the first 2 that come to mind. And then I think
on the defensive side, maybe one of the DBs or like Tajay, maybe.
Yeah, that would be my thought. Tajay would be my thought for the Ethan. I'm not sure Eric in terms of just being an absolute game changer. I'd hate to stay at the position, but I mean but also he wasn't a 2-star. Isaiah Canyon, being ranked as highly as he was elsewhere, and then finally getting his 4-star in Rivals with the most recent update. I think he was able to show quite a bit of upside, and really he carried that Warner Robins offense on several occasions and was doing most of it with a pretty messed up shoulder as well.
Yeah. I think there's, I asked Brent that question today, actually, in our media thing. And he was sort of like, he goes, I couldn't have told you that a year ago. We liked Singleton, but they knew early on. Like, I heard before they even started August camp, like, about Singleton. I heard about him from some of the players from just like the 7-on-7s and stuff. They were just like, holy cow, that kid's lightning fast and catches everything. And so it'll be interesting. Again, that's probably one of those things we'll find out a little bit more about over the summer, because that's when Singleton kind of jumped out.
Yeah.
How about the strongest contributor from the portal? Somebody currently committed or somebody that will come before January? I would say Big Red's the one right now. You would look at just can walk in and start at right guard, and that's what they needed. Because they have the core of the line back and have some depth now too, really across the board on the line for the first time this past season and going into next year, where you have 3 tackles that could start that you feel comfortable with, have a couple of guards and 2 centers you feel really good about. Even though Gabe Fortson hadn't really played much, they're really excited about him. So Finding a little more guard depth, I think, right now is sort of the key. If it's Ben Galloway or Brandon Best or whoever to step up in that room, or Jakai Leftwich moving inside, or whatever it is they end up doing, I think that's going to be a big thing they work on in the spring.
Yeah, I think my pick would be Saeed Gibbs, but I'm right there with you on Rutledge.
Scale of 1 to 10, how happy will the very picky JLO community be with the next set of transfer commits?
I mean, that's
I
quite a
mean, they
bit.
don't think they're getting. What was the one they were asking you about that made me laugh? The running backs. They were Jaquavius Marks and
Yeah.
the other kid. Etienne's brother. Like,
Mhm.
who, by the way, I love John Dwyer, but like he looked like the bad John Dwyer, out of shape Dwyer when he was still in high school, which was a huge red flag, like to me about Etienne, like that he was like really badly overweight as a running back at 16, 15 years old, 17 years old. I think that kid just is not his brother, and that's a tough spot for him.
Yeah, I would say so. I think he got recruited because of his brother, and I think he's also getting re-recruited because of his brother. And everybody thinks they have the magic formula to be able to kind of transfer over his brother's skill set and production into what they hope he can become. And that's a real dangerous game. But in terms of running backs, I know there's been a lot of talk on JOL today about Elijah Green and the situation there. I just think that the closer things got to beat to the finish line, I think it seems like Georgia Tech is kind of looking around elsewhere just to see what else is going on and what else is available prior to pulling the trigger on something that they might regret down the road. Especially, Green did miss quite a bit of time this year with injury, and JOL loves when Georgia Tech takes injured transfers, injured high school recruits. Those are the JOL favorites.
The old damaged goods line. Favorite commit, both high school and transfer. I guess it's more of a Russell question because you deal with the high school kids more than I do. I do like Aaron Fallow a lot, and I do like Graham Knowles a lot. I got to spend time with both of them extensively in different situations, so I got to know them. And then the portal guys, I don't know. Like I like the big red kid, even though I haven't talked to him. Like just his whole story is fascinating to me, and like what happened and how he ended up at Georgia Tech and everything. I think that's kind of a cool story. Mercifully, he's okay too. But those are my favorite. Russell, you've talked to all of these kids, so you probably have a little bit better insight than I do.
Yeah, I mean to pick one recruit, I mean that's the high school recruit. That's pretty tough. I think this was one of those cycles where every kid on the commit list I talked to and had been able to build at least somewhat of a relationship with. So being able to kind of narrow that down and pick just one, I don't know if I really liked the Cal corner, Cedric Franklin. He was one of my favorites. Being able to watch him in a camp setting, I think he was at the Corky Cal at Tech, and then was also believe it some of the other camps that I've been around this past off season, and Cal's right up the road from me here in Woodstock too, so it wasn't too bad to get over there to see him practice, see games. A lot of that was going on actively, just wasn't getting reported on, wasn't getting posted. While he was committed to Virginia, and being able to see him still sign his letter of intent this week after a little bit of a hiccup last week and earlier this month, just to have that opportunity still and to see him hopefully make the most of it. I'm rooting for that kid, and I hope he is able to get everything together. And in the portal, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and that's his last name, and that's an issue. But the tight end transfer they got from Mississippi State was was
Oh,
was interesting, and then it really kind of caught me off guard because a lot of these kids in the portal they've been through the recruiting process. They know how to deal with it. They know how to be really coy and um, make it really difficult for guys like Kelly and myself to do our job. Ryland was upfront and honest and as open as could possibly be, communicating to me just from the first message. Like I didn't even have to explain who I was or what I do. It was just kind of like, I know who you are. I know what you do. I'm going to trust you until you show me I can't trust you. And just kind of going from there. I think he is someone who also really would have blown up had he, kind of kept waiting, especially as more and more teams watched as well as he blocked at Mississippi State this year. And he did have that one catch in the Egg Bowl, but that was a memorable opportunity for him. And just the similar to you like Big Red and his story, which is an awesome story. But with Ryland transferring to Mississippi State with his girlfriend at the time, or it might have been fiance at that point, and then she was playing volleyball, he was playing football, and then now they're both from Georgia, and now they're both in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, and I think she's done with her volleyball eligibility, and he is going to be finishing his career at Georgia Tech. So just seeing what he can do, and after the success story that was Brett Seither at the end of the year, just seeing if they can kind of replicate that and get a full season out of Ryland.
And hopefully get a full season out of Brett Seither.
Well, yeah, absolutely him too.
Poor kid played with like a pretty significant back injury all year.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
It would be nice for him to have a healthy final season at Tech, especially with Dylan Leonard and Luke Benson gone after this bowl game. When do you anticipate being able to give info on what you're hearing about new defensive staff, like names being interviewed, who will be staying, etc.? I've been very clear that I would deal with all that after the bowl game from the jump. And that's been Brent's approach too. He's not even had people in to interview and stuff like in person yet. Should we try to recruit South Georgia better, or is it harder for them to get players to qualify for Georgia Tech? Problem with South Georgia, and I'll get into this instead of Russell, is just it's a lot of space to cover and a lot of kids that are not as interested in coming to Georgia Tech, or don't have the academic background to come to Georgia Tech or interest in it. And you could cover a lot of ground and find a few kids here and there, but like the reality is they recruited, but like those kids don't want to come to school here. They're not missing. They're not like obviously missing on a ton of guys down there. That would be my way of putting it right now. This is not 20 years ago where there's kids that hiding out that end up at Georgia Southern and stuff. There's just not a lot of that anymore. Love to get your thoughts on some of the guys in the less talked about guys in the class. Trey Horn feels like a steal. I agree.
Yes. Russell? Yeah, I mean, and Trey Horn was basically playing running back for quite a bit of the year at Rayboone Gap as well. They were undefeated and they were really close also to winning the championship in the league they're in, and they ended up losing to Charlotte Providence Day. But
Landon Marshall, big offers, doesn't feel like he carries that level of hype.
Landon Marshall, man, I remember he visited Georgia Tech. I think it was the first weekend in June, and then he was telling me he was going to LSU the next weekend. And then I texted him just to check in, and he's like, nah, man, I canceled the visit. I'm committing such and such date. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then, as things progressed throughout the year, Georgia Tech had a little bit of a downward spiral at one point where Landon was getting recruited pretty heavily by Auburn, and he saw the bright lights and the big, not even, I don't know why someone said big city in Auburn, but the bright lights and the
club to without the lake of Auburn.
Yes, exactly. And he saw that, and that was also at the time where his teammate was committed there. So it was kind of like opportunity basically, but he never really took it too seriously or looked too much further into it than that. and kind of remained locked in. And I think a lot of times with kids like that, when they're, highly rated 5'7", 5'8", even all the way up to, 5.9, if a kid doesn't have drama, at least on message boards, he's usually not going to be talked about unless he makes like a highlight play. I mean, Trajan Greco was one of the most overlooked players in the state of Georgia until he played on ESPN2 and made a couple of highlight reel catches, and all of a sudden he's got everybody in the country talking about him.
Definitely. David Prince, probably the least talked about guy in the class.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there was a little bit of surprise when Georgia Tech was able to pull that one off. Being able to get some athleticism and speed in that tight end room. And like I said, I think on the message board or Twitter or somewhere today, but I really think Prince brings a level of athleticism and game changing ability at that tight end room that they don't really have currently. I think he played a lot of receiver there at Glenn Academy. And I wouldn't say he looked like Leo did, but he was able to, make the certain type of plays against a much lower level of competition.
Sorry about that. Troy Stevenson, the least talked about 4-star ever. I mean, because of where he is,
yeah,
like he's in sort of no man's land. It's like those kids that are down in Savannah every year, like they play like Islands or like Jenkins or whatever. Like those guys just don't, like, no one goes down there. You have to really want to like go see those kids, and so they just don't get a lot of hype, and their games aren't going to be on TV, and like that's the way it is. And he's a little bit like on the short side, so I think that kind of hurt him. Christian Pritchett rarely talked about. Christian and his dad are like super into like the recruiting and what's going on with the team and everything, and have been like super bought in. That's been my experience with them. I don't know, Russell, I'm sure you've had the same. It's funny because when Tajay like reaffirmed or whatever, Christian's dad like reached out to me. I was laughing that like I was like mildly concerned about it, and I was joking with him that I've covered enough guys from the boot over the years to know to be wary of them signing out of state, regardless of how committed or not committed they are.
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up really well. They've been invested and locked in from the jump. And that family, the Pritchett family, it really seems like, from my conversations with Christian, with his dad, and really the other members of the family when I saw them down in Atlanta during his official visit, and then also when they made a trip down there for a game this season. Just really in that family, when he committed, he was committed. Like that was it. Like unless somehow Brent got fired, there was some massive scandal or anything like that. Pritchett wasn't going anywhere. There were a lot of schools that were pushing. Houston was pushing at one point. Tulane was pushing at one point. Colorado was pushing at one point. But gosh, that the Pritchett family and Deion Sanders in the same room, that would have been quite the conversation, because that family seems to be the type of people who can really see through the level of non-authenticity.
Okay, that didn't do what I thought it did. Sorry about that.
What did you do?
Some guy like posted some weird thing, and I was like trying to delete it and accidentally showed it on the screen.
I was like, what is that?
So apparently I can show the questions, so we'll do that in a minute when we get to the chat, because we've been going for a while. We're not going to go for like 5 hours.
Oh, I can see the comments now. I figured it out.
Okay, cool. I'm going to start skipping around some of these a little bit. What is your funniest or most absurd signing day memory? I don't know. I've done so many of these, man. Like, one of those funniest to me was when Paul Johnson's accountant's kid went to Georgia. Brendan Douglas like flipped there and ended up being like a fullback for them, and cost his dad a fortune because he was Paul's accountant, so he was making a crap ton of money off Paul Johnson.
Did that really happen?
Yeah, that happened back in the day. Brendan Douglas was the kid's name. He like barely played at Georgia. He wanted to go to Georgia. He loved Georgia. They offered him late. I don't remember why, because they whiffed on a couple running backs or something. And his dad was literally like Paul's accountant or something, or and Paul like immediately like fired him. And Paul was so mad about it because it was just so stupid. He was like, the kid had been committed forever. They offered him, and it was very funny. So that's the one that always sticks out to me. That was, I feel like, a day or two before signing day. It wasn't like right on signing day. Today was very funny with that kid flipping A&M. Just whenever you see one of those, I've been to a few hat dances and stuff. I'm sure you covered Mississippi. You probably saw some weird stuff during that time.
Oh gosh, yeah. He actually.
Oh, I just thought of one. I was at one where the mom got pissed that the kid signed at a certain school, and the mom was like all pissed off about it and like kind of like stormed off. That was also very good. I can't remember which one that was that I was at.
Was that a game or was that something else?
No, this was not that. It was that this was one like actually in Atlanta or something.
Oh wow!
It was not the one that everyone thinks of, where the mom freaked out when he announced. I forget what kid it was. Announced he was going to Alabama instead of LSU, maybe, or something. I forget which kid it was.
Yeah, that was Landon Collins.
Yeah, that one. It wasn't that. It was a different one.
She was so mad.
Yeah, she was. Russell, anything that pops to your head immediately?
Oh gosh, just the Nakobe Dean recruitment. That was quite an adventure. That was when I really started to make a lot of friends on the Ole Miss message boards, because I went ahead and they had me doing like a hot board at that point. And if I did a certain amount of fire emojis, it was more than 50%. But so I ended up at like, I don't know, 1 or 2 a.m. changing it to the amount of fire emojis that it was greater than 50%. But then I never changed my future cast from Georgia. So in my head, looking back, I'm like, hey, it was a no-lose situation. But really, I lost both because people got so pissed. Because, excuse me, he ended up obviously going to Georgia after, committing to Ole Miss numerous times the night before, the morning of. That was quite a turn of events there. And really, I think that is a
NIL probably too, Russell.
Yeah, well, even though NIL was not even a thing yet, I think there was a Ford, whatever they call it. I think it's a Ford Raptor or something like that.
No, truck, yeah.
Yeah, one of those was sitting in his driveway, and that was something. And his recruitment reminds me, of something that is, I wouldn't say sad, but it's just something that happens so much in the process is, family members who may not be fully invested in the success of the recruit, but then also not as involved with the recruit. And then all of a sudden they see 4 or 5 stars next to their name. And at least back then it was a lot more prevalent than it is now because
Phil's jumping in. Yep. Uncle, cousin, stepdad that didn't have anything to do with the kid. Like, Yep. What was the biggest recruiting win for the staff and the biggest loss? I think the biggest win was probably Anthony Carey, and the biggest loss would be I guess CJ Jackson, just because of the raw talent there.
Yeah, I would agree. CJ Jackson. I'm trying to think of who else
would be the biggest win.
Other than Carey, I think it's Canyon, because that was one that, now that signing day's passed, I can kind of go a little bit in depth on it. With Canyon, he was committed to Notre Dame and Georgia Tech had been, pushing quite a bit. Notre Dame's wide receiver coach at the time, Chansey Stuckey, is a Warner Robins native, so he was really tied into everything going on. But somehow Canyon was able to sneak away from Warner Robins without setting off fire alarms, and he made a trip up to Georgia Tech and it was able to keep that quiet. Was able to have the photo shoot, do all that and everything. And as time progressed, and he talked to wide receiver coach Josh Crawford, decided that Georgia Tech was where he wanted to be. Made the decision to flipped, and never looked back. A kid as talented as him had several opportunities, had several schools even reach out in the last few weeks, and he was able to kind of shut them all down. He also did have the shoulder surgery, which made him really shut things down early because he wanted to really focus on recovery and kind of staying right mentally at the same time.
All right. Someone asked a question about like how the NIL budget works and if Brent would have to go to JPAT over stuff, and that's not any of that works. The collective technically runs the NIL and runs it at Brent's discretion. So there's no, that is literally not at all connected to the AD or anyone at Georgia Tech, technically, even Brent. Portal guys for the February signing period. I think we'll get into that more as we see who goes into the portal over the next week.
Yeah.
In regards to your expectations before, did today go better, worse, or as you expected for GT? I think a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah.
Which high school signee do you think has the best chance of getting on the field meaningful snaps in 24?
What was the question?
Who meaningful snaps next year, freshman? I mean, I think we answered this in a little bit of a roundabout way earlier with the question about like Trey Horn or Luke Harpering maybe, or David Prince.
Anthony Carey.
Yeah, Anthony. Best portal guys, best chance to be major contributors, Big Red.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty easy.
Sort of slam dunk.
Yeah.
Lightsey or Hamilton, whatever else they end up with. Jack Barton, like
really any of them, you know what I mean? Like none of the kids.
Real guys are all expected to come in and contribute. That's why you're bringing them in. You know?
Yep.
Top 30 class for this cycle is pretty good, all things considered, with some on the field success this year. Can we finally get a top 20 class here on the flats? Yeah, I mean, maybe. Like, it'll be the other interesting piece of all this too. Will be like it's now an equation of how many high school kids you sign, how many portal guys, what does that look like, and that's going to shape a lot of the signing classes in the future.
Yeah, that is, and then also, as much as we like to think of it as Georgia Tech being good in a vacuum, like in terms of it just being Georgia Tech being good, it also is how good is South Carolina next year? How good is Clemson? What happens with Shane Beamer? What happens at Tennessee? Does Florida fire Billy Napier? Does Hugh Freeze start winning games? All of these questions and all of these area schools are recruiting the state of Georgia so heavily that their success or failures also impact, what Georgia Tech is able to do, believe it or not.
I'm going to start breezing through these a little faster because we're going to be here all night because we're like only halfway through these questions. We still have a few in the chat too. Someone asked about Pruitt and how they negotiate inside. That's really not something we need to get into. Like, where would you rank GT's finish amongst the other ACC teams? I haven't even looked at it today. Russell, do you have any take on that?
I mean, the close was really good. Obviously Florida State lost KJ Bolden. I don't know what NC State, I think, flipped a receiver who had decommitted from North Carolina. don't believe North Carolina got any surprise news or big additions.
Well, they got their hat on Anthony Carey's table.
Yeah, which was
Maybe he
everyone
didn't
was
have an
freaking out in
NC.
the thread because he had a UNC hat, and then the way the lighting was, I mean, maybe it was powder blue, um, the balloons in the background.
They were blue. I don't. Were they powder blue? I don't remember, but they weren't like super UNC. They just look like red, white, and blue.
Yeah,
Red, white, and blue balloons you would buy at like Party City or Publix or whatever.
yeah. I don't. I'm trying to think of who else. Miami. Miami had a really big day. Miami flipped.
Florida did not. They
Five.
gave it.
Yeah, yeah. I would say Miami probably had the best close in the ACC, and then I would say Georgia Tech would be right up there, either right below them, or if I'm missing somebody else who well, Syracuse. Syracuse is completely going to try to flip their entire roster and get things
You're
going
trying
back.
to do Dion basically there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you cover the linebacker potential for 2024 based on who's available? I recall in the 21 season, Thomas and Ely were not that effective, but they came back in 22 and they were really good, got a shot in the NFL. Do you see that happening for Tatum and Eford? Yeah, I think if Trent and I assume Kyle Eford is locked in. Trent, I assume, is locked in. And so, yeah, they have a chance. I mean, it's not like they went and got, two Butkus Award-winning linebackers to come and compete against them. Like that's not what's going on. But yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, if you're Brett Key, yeah, that would be the best possible outcome is Kyle Eford and Trent Tatum play really well, and you build Lightsey in there and Dakari Ashley or Jacob Cruz or whoever else they have, and some of the freshmen, Hamilton.
Yeah.
And that's kind of your core guys. But yeah, they're going to need those two dudes to play. So, and Eford played well down the stretch. Trent actually started playing a lot better when his snap count went down, which was fascinating. I don't know if that's what that's about. So there you go. Who do you think are some of the guys from this class Tech is really going to miss in 2 to 4 years? Obviously, it's hard to tell in the future. What is your gut feeling?
What was the question?
Who do you think are some of the guys from this class who Tech is really going to miss in 2 to 4 years? Sorry, Spence. I don't quite get what your question is. Like, if you mean like guys who are going to leave and go in the portal, guys they've whiffed on. Sorry, I don't know. Defensive side of the ball, can you project the positions recruits will start playing out with? For example, is your boy whose name I can't pronounce, the defensive lineman. That looks like Idris Elba's brother. Yeah, they both look like they're 50s. Yes.
I remember I sent you that picture a couple Sundays ago. Can we check the birth certificate?
Yeah, I even texted a buddy and was like, "How old is this dude?" Like, because this doesn't look kosher. There's if you go look at the offers pin on the board, we have them broken down by positions for the most part.
Yeah.
And so they'll be D-tackle, D-ends. That's where they're going to start out with. But we'll maybe break that down a little bit more closer in. I feel like that's much more of that's maybe a post-bowl game content item.
Yeah.
Am I correct that Georgia Tech can continue to take players from the portal until the next semester starts and have them enroll and be able to participate in spring practice? Yes, you are correct in that. There's no deadline until school starts. And then technically they could take commitments from kids that enroll in Maymester or June, spring or summer or whatever, or even August. Kids can commit whenever they want if they're in the portal. There's no blocking. It's just a blockage of going into the portal.
Yeah. Well, there's that. And then there's also that exclusive time window where only transfers who are mid-years can go on college campuses and take official
period. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. In January, early January. So that's another thing to keep a close eye on because, as the personnel gets, finalized on that side of the ball, there's going to be targets who emerge, targets who may pull out of their current commitments to other schools, things of that nature, especially in the transfer portal.
Was Bradford the potential DN flip that Russell was talking about in one of his Q&As?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Which of the 3 stars do you think has the most potential to have big impact for the team, excluding Philo?
3-star?
Yeah, 3-star.
Let's see. Just like overall in their career, or
Yeah, I guess that's that would be how I would read it. I wonder about Luke Harpering just because of the bloodlines, man.
yeah.
Like, see, I don't think he's done growing. Like, if he ends up like his dad was what 6'8". Like, what if he grows another 2 or 3 inches? Like, he's already a beast. Like,
Right.
at 6'3". Like, I don't know.
I think
That's one.
yeah. I think mine would be Jamison Riggs. Just hearing so much.
Whoever like Weston Franklin or like some of those dudes, the way he carries, like he's very very chill and like not interested in attention and stuff. Like is that workman thing that a lot of Brent's good offensive linemen have that they've signed.
Yeah.
Ethan McKinney's like that. McKinney hated being interviewed. Like
He would never answer my phone calls.
no, yeah, we had to go over to his high school if we wanted to talk to him. And then sometimes he didn't want to talk then either, or wasn't there, or like wouldn't want to hang out to afterwards to talk. So yeah. Russell mentioned that he believes Dion will leave Colorado next year. Do you think he'll be leaving Colorado after next season? If so, what are some landing spots and what coaching capacity? I will hang up and listen. Don't know where you think Dion's going.
Gosh, where is he going to go? Somewhere else. I don't know.
I mean, the job he wants is UCLA if that comes open.
Yeah.
Or USC, one of those jobs. But he's got to win there, which I don't know if he will or not. That's a whole other question.
Right.
They're going into that fierce Big 12 next year, so I don't know.
I think, that's the issue. But then when he got there and took the transfers that he did, especially with Travis Hunter, he's given himself a 2-year window to win and get out. That's my opinion. That's my read on the situation. And I think that's also what some people who aren't covering, sports at such a magnitude where they can't take a step back and realize, hey, Dion's only signing 5 high school kids and going all in on the portal.
Yep.
What do you think he's trying to do? He's not trying to build a program. He's trying to win next year.
Yep.
Because he's trying to win and get out. That's my take on it. And, Amontre Bradford actually did an interesting interview with the local news down there near Statesboro, where he basically said that, kind of after this coming year, it may be possible for him and Cam Michael, his cousin and really good friend, to in fact be able to play together
at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Someone is asking about scholarships. I think we're at 91 right now. How many transfers do they take right now, Russell? Do you know off the top of your head?
Oh gosh.
There's 23 high school kids, and then
there's Rutledge, Hawes, Ryland.
31. So there's 31 kids. So they'll put them at 90 something. Yeah, plus. This is just wants to know like what position groups we think people might be leaving from. I don't know. There's guys coming from across the board. Yeah. Look at any place where there's multiple guys. I mean, you had the Gibson brothers leave last week. You had, ET and T.O. leave. There's guys like that are going to be gone. Like I said, there's a couple guys that are going to graduate. On the defensive side of the ball, I would expect some more attrition there with just guys who aren't playing, are not going to be in the future there. Yeah. And then there's, a couple guys on offense, too, that'll probably decide to go take their chances elsewhere. They'll get to the number they want to get to. It's not a hard deal to get there. So are they going to go sign 10 more guys between now and February? No, that's not happening. But, could they add 3, 4, 5 guys in the next between now and the end of spring, sure. But I don't they're not going to go crazy just adding guys to add guys either. So it just depends on who leaves. And there's always going to be one or two surprises, and that's just the way this works these days. Kyle Kennard was a surprise. He didn't tell them he was leaving. I assume Brett Key set aside a war chest for the new DC to allow him to spend on the portal in the spring. Fair thought. Not really. I mean, you don't know what's going to be in the portal in the spring, so you got to get kids now.
Yep.
Someone asked about the Rivals portal rankings. I don't know. We don't know. They're literally working on those every day right now. I would say pay attention to the Rivals portal rankings, and probably when the portal closes and they have a chance to see everyone who's still in there. Do you want to talk about Elijah Green, or should they log on the site to read that?
They should log on the site to read that.
I think so too.
Always be closing.
Yeah. Someone asking about players qualifying easier. Is it easier to get into school? Yes. They are able to work with most kids that are not just completely crazy. Do you think we use the Pruitt money, the Pruitt NIL money today? You guys have completely misunderstood how this works. There's a budget of money, and there's a pool of money, and it's more than Brett thought he was going to have because people have ponied up, and so they have money to use in different ways. And he's going to be not crazy in how he allocates it, hence why they bailed out on that particular recruitment. But money is not, they're not trying to go get Dylan Gabriel, who, according to sources I know, got $2 million from Oregon or in that range. That is not what's going on. What's going on is these are microtransactions, in, under six figures for the most part. Those are the deals. So keeping him not signing that kid didn't do anything to help them with anyone else. Those guys that they took today were coming either way. We knew about Anthony Carey already. Russell knew. We felt pretty good that Bradford was going to flip. So yeah. Other running back possibilities. Seems to me we still need one more. Yeah, we'll get into that probably after signing day. I'm going to speed this up a little bit.
Yeah. Someone
asked if Jackson Hamilton and the kid from Tennessee, what's his name?
Warren Burrell.
Yeah, if they signed papers. They don't sign. So transfers don't sign anything. They sign a grant of aid, which is non-binding.
Yeah.
The way that you bind those kids nowadays, which I learned from a DFO that I know, is they go sign a lease on an apartment, and now they're locked into that place because they'd have to pay $12,000 or whatever, break their lease for the year. So that's how you get. That's the only way to hook somebody in. So a lot of schools aren't announcing their transfers. Some did. Some announced some of them. It's just totally random how that works. And if you're at a smaller school and you're nervous about it, you're not going to announce them.
Yeah. Georgia Tech, I think, announced all their transfers.
Biggest defensive recruiting misses are staff killers. I don't know. Why is everyone so negative? What the hell? They just signed a top 30 class. You guys need to this kind of pisses me off that there's so much negativity, man. What is that about? They do a great job of they don't have a freaking defensive coordinator right now, and they're missing 2 defensive positions on the staff, and they went out and closed a top 30 class in Brent's first year in a place that rarely ever does this. Be happy about that. Celebrate. Don't be negative. Don't bring a bunch of negativity into it. Oh, we missed on this and missed that, and good Lord, be happy about what you got.
Oh man, you missed the one post in the thread this morning where someone went on a 500-word tangent about how, so just talking about all the misses and how bad the class was.
It's like the dude talking about how bad Buster Faulkner was yesterday or whatever. Like, just insane like rants from people that like just doubling down on bad points. Like, yeah, and not to pick on this guy. Like, there's just been a bunch of I'm not trying to pick on Arca Torture or whatever his name is. No offense, dude. It's just like there's a bunch of negative questions in this thing, and like I don't get it. Like, it's recruiting. You're not going. It's like going like dating, right? Like, if you go out and ask in a bar full of girls and like approached every one of them, you're not going to hit. Even if you were Ryan Gosling or whatever, you're not going to hit like every chick that you go hit on in the bar. Like, that's not the way life works, and for anyone. So, yeah, that's what's going on. Was this where we were expecting them to finish? I think they finished higher than Russell and I both thought they were going to a few weeks ago, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We already talked about this. Anyone that decides Philo might get a 4th star?
Philo.
Someone asked about Bradford in the chat too, if he's one.
See, I'm not quite sure on that. Obviously I kept in touch with Bradford, kept in touch with Bradford's people, but I wasn't watching Statesboro every week or really honestly watching his film. I mean, I'll check it out, and then Garcia will check it out. But I think Philo's the one, and then getting a more accurate ranking on Luke Harpering, whether it's just a 5.6, a 5.7, really just anything that kind of shows the level of upside he has, but then also the level of production he was able to have playing both sides of the ball. There's a
yeah. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say, Wilson?
Oh, no, all good. I just got to make a phone call as soon as we get off here.
Cool. Someone asking about the D tackle from Florida State still being available.
Which one?
TIFA.
Oh, okay. Yeah. AO. Yeah, AO is he's still waiting to see kind of what happens and what other schools come in. But he was not ready to make a decision, or at least the team who is in front currently wasn't really ready to make that decision and pull the trigger. It seems like another situation which has been talked about quite a bit in depth on the message board, just about how much things are going to develop on recruiting the portal on the defensive side of the ball here in the next, I'd say, 10 days, especially after the bowl game gets played.
Someone asked if Trey Horn should play safety, Russell.
No.
Your jacket. That's his take on that. All right, let's get into the chat questions here. And I believe I can post them so you can see them, Russell, and people.
Oh no, I can see them.
Well, no, I mean I can highlight the one that I want to.
Oh, okay.
So let's see. Do you see the question?
Luke Harpering's tape is missing. Do you guys really? Oh, amazing. Do you guys see him as a tight end? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Brent said that today, like that he's a tight end, and
yeah, he'll be a tight end, and that's kind of what it is. Obviously when you watch him play, I watched him take over the game against Roswell on both sides of the ball, and he was dominant on the defensive side of the ball going up against a kid committed to Notre Dame, and he showed a lot of potential, especially if he were to stay at that position and develop those secondary moves to with pass rushing. But tight end is where he's going to make his money.
Here's a question for you from my boy Bootlegging.
Yes. So your boy Bootlegging. So I talked to quite a few people on that this afternoon. I think he announced that he was going to commit during like the brunt of where everything was coming at my phone at a record pace. It was something. But I was able to get back with some people and make some calls, and it sounds like Georgia Tech's in a pretty good place right now to beat Kansas, Florida State, and Michigan for Sutton, who is a really close friend. And as someone corrected me on the board, him and Jaden Mustaf play against each other on Friday night, 30 minutes after the bowl game kicks off.
Ooh.
Because it's not I wouldn't say it's as much of a glaring need as the fan base likes to think of it as, especially when it comes to the tight end room, where there is a big need for some playmaking abilities and not just running a seam route and being able to block. They need someone who can do a lot of different things, catch the ball. Harpring's got the ability to do everything you need for a tight end and Buster Faulkner's offense. I'm not going to say he can be Brock Bowers, because that wasn't fully his offense at UGA, but he could do similar type of production.
All right, I'll title this one with NIL. So there's various types of NIL. Everyone gets a little taste of something. There's the scale, whatever it is, they rank everyone 1 through 85, and then say the top 40 guys all get money, and it's tiered. I think there's a little bit of like a signing bonus situation going on with some of the recruits, and so that's what you're talking about. That's how it works roughly. Like, I don't want to, like a guy might get 10 to sign, and then 10 a year, whatever units of measurement you want to use as a generic, and then say like your top guy might get 50, units, and then like a stud player that you sign might get 25 units to sign. There's things like that. That's how it works. Can Trey Cooley hit the portal? If Trey Cooley is a graduate, yes. I don't know where did Trey Cooley come in as a grad transfer? I don't even remember.
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either, but I think neither one of us remember. Would I be shocked if he was a guy who left? No. Would I be shocked if he's a guy on the team next year? No. So I don't know. They're not over their number at running back, so I mean, they played under this year, really, at where you normally play at running back, actually, with scholarship guys, I think. They were like one down. So I think they got a little room. Oh, oops. Crap. Hold on. Some of these we've touched on, so I'll skip. Here's one for Russell.
There was a lot of rumors that UGA was kicking the tires a little bit. They were at his state title game, and they had a PWO out to Coulter Ginn, who I really, really liked in the class this year, is somebody who I thought Georgia Tech might go in on if anything happened with Graham Knowles, especially if a school closer to home kind of came in on him. But the combination of Graham's commitment, the success of Georgia Tech's offense, the commitment of Harrison Moore kind of shut everything down with that. Like I said, Georgia offered the PWO to the Coulter Ginn kid. They're going to pay his tuition with NIL, and everything should be good on that end. But I can say that at several points throughout the cycle, they were keeping a close eye on him.
Let's see. Okay. I think he is very much a replacement for Dante Smith. And if he can play early, yes. That's one of those questions. And a running back's a position where guys can often play early. He's built really well. I just spent a bunch of time with him today and was very impressed with his frame and where he's at physically right now.
Yeah. And then the fact that he'll be there, in a couple of weeks too, really helps.
6-8 months of strength before fall camp, or 8 months of strength and conditioning.
Yeah. I could honestly see him having the the Evan Dickens hype throughout spring ball and into the summer, and then not hitting that freshman wall just due to the nothing against Evan Dickens, but the character of Carey and really his ability.
Somebody keeps posting they think Shearer remains a DC. Okay. Whatever. Here's one for you, buddy.
Scale 1 to 10. I mean, goodness gracious. I it's a possibility. All of a sudden, we got guns to my head. We're betting coach. Scale of 1 to 10. I don't know. 6, 7. I mean, goodness.
Maybe land at least one, probably.
Those NLIs from today. I don't know what the ruling is on that, but anything can happen, honestly.
I would think fairly soon we can push on this. Jack Barton's transfer portal working.
Yeah, we'll get on them about that.
So this is an interesting question of the two high school kids. And the way that I phrased this to somebody the other day was that, and Brent I asked Brent this exact same question basically in a different way in the presser today, and he said that Philo's like exactly what you want, right? Like he's Mr. Quarterback, great player, can make all the throws, can run the ball, do all those things, and they think the world of him and his future. And that Knowles is like this dude that's like sort of unmolded clay. He has like the physical stature of an NFL quarterback from a few years ago, like maybe a little bit less so in the last few cycles of the NFL draft. And Brett compared him, I think it was Blake Bortles that they had at UCF, right? That's the quarterback he had when he was there, right? When they went to the Fiesta Bowl. Is that right?
So, yeah.
It sounds right to me.
Somebody else correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, that's right. So he said it reminds him of him, like this big kind of giant dude with a big arm, can make all the throws. But with Knowles, it's a consistency thing, and has less experience playing quarterback in high school than Philo does, right? He just doesn't have the same number of game reps. So he's a guy that's going to take a little bit longer to develop. The way I would use a basketball analogy is that sort of like Knowles is like a big man right now, and it's going to take a little bit of time to develop them. And could he be the next, in the Georgia Tech parlance, Moses Wright is like the great example of the raw guy you took that turned into something that, totally possible. I mean, he has great athletic genes. His dad was a pro tennis player. Like, you let them fight it out. That's what Brent said he wants to see. Like those guys fight it out. He has Zach Pyron and Haynes King there to let them develop behind. They don't necessarily need to play next year. Like he can just let them develop naturally and see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's kind of a best case scenario too. Not putting any pressure on the freshmen, but also if things get out of hand and some of the out of conference games, maybe give each one a series or something like that, but no pressure, no expectations. And I think especially for Philo, that's going to be big for him not to have those sky high expectations coming off of finishing his high school career as a state champion, Mr. Georgia, and all of the accolades, Georgia's all-time leading passer. All of those things, can usually lead to expectations. But for him to be coming to Georgia Tech at school with, established starting quarterback and an established backup, I think it's a best case scenario for all parties.
Yeah, I think that I think there's a great example of this right now going on in Texas with Arch Manning, right? Arch Manning was everyone's favorite quarterback, and he's in a situation where he's sitting behind Quinn Ewers, like he understood. And the reality is, if he does well when it's his turn, it's not going to impact his ability to play the pros, to go sit for a year and learn and get speed and get the physical training and get the offense down and not be rushed into things. And how many broken quarterbacks have we seen in the NFL that get like broken, or even in college, playing too early when they're not supposed to? It happens all the time. So ideally, you let those two guys sit for a year. You know, you got two very solid quarterbacks to go to next year. Maybe you get a little mop up time and go from there. This is about Chip Kelly, actually, and I think that would be an interesting show. Maybe that's something I'll do in the off season. He proposed how to realign college football, basically, and I thought it was interesting. But it's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Again, I said I would do this, I think, after Christmas. So Russell enjoys the nickname that Paul Johnson had for Jeff Collins, though. I've told it to him before.
Yeah.
And also, I probably need to put the parental warning on the podcast for that one.
Yeah.
Why do FSU fans have crazy theories? So it's funny, man. I was sitting and I went to a barber shop today, and I got to cut all this hair that I got in my head. And they had Sports Center on, and I wanted to smack the TV because they were intentionally being misleading in their story that they were running, which was that Florida State's exploring their options to leave the ACC. Florida State's exploring every legal option they can to rile up people to donate money to their school because they know they're stuck in the ACC. And the lady goes, they only have to pay $120 million to get out, plus some other things. The other things are what the problem is, and they didn't elaborate on it, even though ESPN knows exactly what the deal is because they have the other half of that contract and know exactly what the grant rights are. So it's very funny. But yes, I think it is funny if Florida State fans are pushing Kirby to the Falcons. Kirby ain't going to the Falcons. Kirby enjoys being in control of everything. He doesn't want to go work for someone. Right now, the head coach of the University of Georgia is basically an omnipotent person and reports to themselves unless they screw up. So, and with the rings he's got now, I think he's pretty much in Vince Dooley land where he can kind of name his time to retire. So he ain't going anywhere. Here we go.
I'm working on it.
Man, it's where Russell's phone's going in the background and chiming. Yeah.
Yes. There's something happening there. I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't know exactly what can be done, but there is.
Well, if he doesn't show up, he can get out of it. It's not until you step foot on campus you're able to get out of your NIL. Like you could just add they basically have to release you because you get pressured and the backlash of it and all that and blah blah blah. He could go into the portal basically what Justin Brown did too. That's the other option.
Yeah.
When you burn your portal.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on, and I'm trying to see if it's just hopeful smoke from certain sources, or if it's him actually kind of second guessing himself. I mean, like we mentioned a little bit ago, when you sign 5 high school kids, you kind of start to see a vision for what the outlook is for the program in the very near future, but you don't really see any type of long-term future. And that trip from Atlanta to Boulder ain't getting any easier.
It's not getting any cheaper either. As someone who travels all the time on airlines. Yeah, he graduated from Texas A&M. I've said this multiple times. I don't know. Was that a question? He's like.
I don't think he would lie about it.
Yeah, like he came in as a graduate transfer. I don't know what the question is. The question has been whether or not you would be able to use. If he used his grad transfer to come here, did he bank a portal use for later as an undergraduate person or something? And look, I don't know how that works. And I've looked, I cannot find language about it. I do not think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's an idiot and would leave the situation he's in. So Haynes is a very sharp guy. He has a great situation. He's walking into basically his entire offense back except for the right guard and 2 tight ends, right? Yeah. Everyone else on the team literally is returning.
In the running back, but yeah.
Yeah, and Dante Smith, sorry. And I don't want to shortchange Tay. I love Tay. But and then they've added other pieces that are comparable at most of those spots. Tight end, they probably still need a little something, but maybe not. But yeah, I think that this is a Chicken Little Georgia Tech fan thing that they're concerned about this, and I don't know why it is. He would have gone in if he was going in. The time to go in was before the bowl game if you were a quarterback.
Yeah. Go ahead and skip that one.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, that's a
Go
that's a
watch
good first.
go watch the UCF podcast they did with Brendan Helwig, my old friend. There's a nugget there if you're interested in those.
Oh, did you really talk about Mama Fox?
I dropped a one-liner about her Amazon wish list.
I thought maybe you were going to talk about Magic City. All right.
Yes, I am sick. I have like a sinus infection, probably from all the traveling I've been doing. I went from Atlanta to Manhattan, spent 3 days in Manhattan, flew back, was home for less than 24 hours, got on an airplane, flew to Tampa. So I've been in hotels and around lots of people and got some kind of bug. So that's what's going on. No worries, Will. I wasn't picking on you. You are like the 50th person that's asked that question about Haynes King. Thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate you. Like always, I try to answer the questions first on the site to give people who are subscribers, and most of the people watch us are, but like give them their first crack at asking questions, and then we can jump into the chat. So that's the way this works if you're new to this. Thanks everyone. Make sure you smash the like button. You guys think Russell's going to sleep? He's gonna be up later than I am tonight. And I got to drive to Boca tomorrow to go cover the Boca Raton Bowl, and then drive back to Tampa on Friday before this game. So we're both burning the candles at both ends right now. But we appreciate everyone. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell your friends about Jackets Online. I will be posting a link later on tonight where you can give the gift of Rivals to your friends. So if you have some cheap bastard like Georgia Tech fans that won't drop their $100 a year for the awesome coverage that we have, you can wet their beaks with a gift subscription and get them in the loop. And thanks everybody. Appreciate you. And Russell, any final thoughts?
No, I think you covered it all. We'll have to do this again soon.
Yep. Hopefully, now that I've got this set up, we should be able to do this fairly regularly with Russell. And my hope is when the off season hits, we'll start doing some other stuff to bring in some former players and things. So I appreciate everybody. Have a great night. Thank you.